This is an interesting case involving a 54-year-old patient who made the switch from soft multifocal contacts to ortho-K. And the problem we're looking at is under correction. The patient's myopia is not being fully corrected. And if you look at the post-wear topographies, there's a double ring in the right eye and partial double ring in the left eye. I think some of this could be from the patient's age. At 54 years, especially if this patient has been outdoors a lot, you'll have a fair amount of natural cross-linking to the cornea. And although ortho-K is mostly an epithelial change, there's some stromal involvement, and I think that can make it harder for the fluid forces to shift tissue in an older patient. There's an option of switching the patient just to daytime multifocal wave lenses, and it seems like the patient is up for that. I think that's a great choice. If this is a patient who's really motivated to have ortho-K work, the way that I would look at this case is to look at this area here, and this looks like the best treatment that we're getting in either eye. So if we bring up the left lens and we look in the superior meridian, we've got about 56 microns of clearance. And all the other meridians, we're trying to move tissue a little bit farther. And so if we were to keep this patient in an ortho-K lens, what I would recommend doing is decreasing the optic zone. That's already been one time, but I would decrease it even more. And then I would make it so that the most amount of clearance is not any more than 56. Of course, this is just theoretical, that if 56 works here, then it would work everywhere around, all the way around. And I'm not 100% sure that's true, but from a theoretical standpoint, that sounds like it's worth a try, as long as the patient is interested in still pursuing ortho-K. Another thing I would do is decrease the sag on this lens. So ultimately what we're doing is bringing this lens closer to the cornea, reducing the OZ, all for the goal of moving as little tissue as possible. Another thing that we may find with this patient is that the treatment takes a little bit longer. So in other words, an undercorrection after 1 week of wear may not necessarily indicate the lens needs to be changed, but perhaps that the lens just needs to be worn a little bit longer. As far as the left eye goes, right now we're working with an initial OZ of 5.9, so I would probably bring that all the way down to about a 5.3. And if we did that, right now our power in the lens is a 1.73, which is a little bit high for a minus 350 myope, but I'm going to make that still the final target. 5.3. And 5.9. Okay, so now we see that we can decrease the amount of topo demand because we've made the OZ smaller. And I'm just going to bring that down until we're 1.77 again. We're close to that. And all of this is going to be in 100% mode. Okay. I'm also going to reduce the sag. We have about 3.5 microns of central clearance right now. The post-wear topographies show really good bearing in the periphery in both eyes, so I'm not too worried about flattening this lens in the periphery. I think we'll still get good fit and good alignment. So I'm going to drop the apical clearance all the way down to about 0. and then touch up the individual meridian. So just trying to get as close to 1.77 as we can be. Okay, so now if we go through and look, we're getting the most clearance, it looks like, in the inferior nasal quadrant here, and we're at about 49.5 microns. So all the way around the lens, the most clearance we're getting anywhere under the lens is about 50 microns. And the idea is if we can mold 56, then we should be able to mold 50 at least all the way around. This does result in a smaller OZ. As far as glare and halos go, I haven't found that really to be a huge problem, if it wasn't a problem to begin with. And this is possibly one strategy if this patient wants to stay in Ortho-K. I would do the same thing for the right eye. We don't really have any areas where we're getting good treatment, we're getting a full double ring all the way around. But if we work under the assumption that the right eye anatomically and physiologically is fairly similar to the left eye, we could do the same thing here, bring the OZ down to 5.3, and then reduce our topo demand to 2.27, or even a little bit less, I think, would be okay for this patient. So if the patient wanted to continue with Ortho-K, that's what I would do. If the patient wants to switch over to a daytime multifocal lens, I think that would be fine. I would not design the multifocal lens any differently for this particular patient than I would for any other patient. Since we're not molding any tissue, I think a normal way-fitted multifocal lens would be just fine. I'm not going to design a lens that's not really my area of expertise. What I normally do, and I encourage you to try, is to go with the starting lens that's recommended in the WAVE tutorial videos that's available on the WAVE website. That has worked pretty well for me the few times I've done multifocal fits, and then you can make adjustments from there. So I hope this helps. Feel free to email me if you have any questions, and good luck with this patient.